I know what we're gonna do today.
With Phineas and Ferb officially back, it's time to rank every character in it from good to evil. Let's begin, like we normally do, with the most pure-hearted characters in the show. These characters are the good. Taking the top spot, we have a pick that might surprise you because he isn't the most major character, but the gold medal of good goes to an ordinary platypus.
Oh, there you are, Perry.
Actually, I'll be real with you guys. The script art didn't really explain why this normal-looking platypus is the most good. He did insist that I should put a fedora on him, though, so I guess I'll
Perry the platypus?
I want to say that I knew it was you all along, but I can't because I didn't.
Well, despite the initial shock of that plot twist, I can't say it surprises me to see Perry at the top of our list again. He's an altruistic, semi-aquatic mammal who manages to juggle life as both a beloved family pet and a heroic secret agent. Perry spends every day either thwarting Dr. Doofenshmirtz or acting as his unofficial therapist. Whatever the situation demands, basically. He cares deeply for the people around him, constantly rescuing civilians from dangerous situations and even saving Doof's life on a few occasions. While it might seem like we should take a few points off for his double life, it's clear that Perry does care about Phineas and Ferb. In Across the Second Dimension, he only revealed his identity when Second Dimension Doofenshmirtz threatens to hurt the boys. But he's genuinely heartbroken to have hurt Phineas's feelings. Being willing to risk the trust of his closest companions for the greater good says a lot about how selfless Perry is. Not to mention that during the school year between seasons 4 and 5, he apparently served as the sole defense force against a giant robot scorpion monster in the desert, not to mention him saving the entire ensemble cast's lives in the season premiere. Perry might have a bit of an attitude at times, but when you're that big of a hero, I argue you've earned the right to be a little sassy. For our silver medalist of good, we have Meep. Look, I know there aren't any surprising picks yet, but I swear they aren't all ranked the same as last time. Meep has now appeared in 3 half-hour specials, and in all of them he plays roughly the same role, an intergalactic security agent who protects all things cute from those who would use their cuteness for evil-doing. This most often results in him having scuffles with his arch-nemesis, Mitch, and often recruiting the help of his Earthling buddies, Phineas and Ferb. As for why he's the runner-up to Perry, well, aside from Perry having considerably more on-screen hero time, we have to admit that Meep recruiting a group of, admittedly very skilled, children to help take down intergalactic threats is a bit questionable. Normally I'd be all like, it's a cartoon, who cares? But this video requires me to overanalyze the Phineas and Ferb plot lines at least a little bit. God, I love my job. Rounding out the top 3, we have Isabella. As a Fireside Girl troop leader and Phineas and Ferb's neighbor, Isabella's probably the guy's most consistent ally. She's like if you put cotton candy and unicorns in a blender and personified the result as a little girl. Isabella gets along with everybody and is constantly giving her time, talents, and connections to whatever scheme Phineas and Ferb are cooking up. Of course, that's partially due to her massive crush on the former, but still, the fact remains that Isabella is constantly helping others, rarely ever expecting anything in return. Without her and the Fireside Girls, Phineas and Ferb would have a way harder time pulling off their inventions. In the episode Isabella and the Temple of Sap, we see how hard she has to work to make her part of the operation happen, keeping her troops' spirits up and even risking her neck to help Phineas and Ferb get the sap they need. The only negative trait Isabella has is her occasional dark side. It rarely makes an appearance, but there are some moments where her impatience with Phineas's obliviousness leads to her acting just a little passive-aggressive. Even this doesn't stop her from encouraging him to keep on creating, though, which earns her even more points. Though we can't forget about that one time she kinda casually threatened Buford for using her catchphrase, like,
There.
We'll talk about it later.
even Buford seemed kind of scared, just how much darkness hides under that little pink bow. In any case, a quick mention of the Fireside Girls is in order. Most of what they do is just whatever Isabella tells them to do. They're always more than happy to help each other and others, though, so they're a consistent force of good for Danville. But as we saw in the episode Lord of the Firesides, they do have the potential for disagreement. Granted, it was all due to Doofenshmirtz's uncooperating nature, so we aren't really taking many points off for that, but it still definitely stands out as an example of their potential for violence. I mean, just disagreeing on a cupcake flavor sent them into an all-out faction war, but it also revealed that they have the potential to start a pretty good metal band. Seriously, when is Gretchen's album dropping? Well, we can talk about that later. For now, it's time to get to the main duo themselves. That's right, without further ado, pull back the curtain for Marty the Rabbit Boy and his musical blender. These two provide the good and occasionally morally questionable people of the tri-state area with beautiful music, and they're always there to pick you up when you're feeling down. Anyway, let's talk about the spiritual successor to musical blender, Ferb Fletcher. Ferb is a man of few words, but many actions, and those actions reveal a pure heart. Ferb is the type of guy who will go along with whatever his buddies want to do, content to use his talents to help them out however he can, not being concerned with taking credit or glory. When Ferb does take center stage, though, he absolutely steals the show. In the episode The Lizard Whisperer, Ferb grows attached to a chameleon named Steve. When Steve grows gigantic and goes missing, the gang is ready to give up until Ferb gives a rousing speech that recruits the entire town to help them out. At least until they learned they were going after a giant lizard. Despite his stoicism, stoicism, Ferb also has a gentle soul. In fact, he's more in touch with his feelings and those of others than his brother. In the second half of Summer Belongs to You, he offers Isabella a tissue and a listening ear because she's crying over Phineas being distressed over getting off the deserted island. In the episode where the gang plays video games while sick, and lazy in Buford's case, mood, Ferb lets Baljeet win to protect his ego, insisting he didn't do so to boost his ego further. In general, Ferb is just a nice guy who genuinely enjoys helping people, though he does seem to have a few darker impulses. In the episode where the boys reunite Love Handle, Ferb prepares to threaten Bobby Fabulous with a mace when he suspected he wasn't willing to appear at their parents' anniversary. In general though, Ferb's patient, always listening when Phineas or someone else tells him to back off, so we can't dock a ton of points for that little instance. And sticking with his bro toward the top is Phineas Flynn. First things first, I don't know about anyone else, but Phineas is so much funnier than I remember him being as a kid. Something about this dude being simultaneously the most emotionally tone-deaf creature in existence and one of the nicest kids you'll ever meet just hits a different level of comedy few other cartoons have reached.
Do I know romance or what?
What?
His lack of emotional awareness is the main reason he lands lower than the previous few characters, because while he does so unintentionally, he causes a lot of turmoil for Candace and Isabella, albeit for very different reasons. He can also be reckless with his inventions at times, which has definitely put the gang in danger a few times. That said, Phineas is still a great kid overall, always putting others above himself. Whether his inventions are harmless, albeit gigantic fun, or straight up death traps, he always makes them with the intent of having a good time and helping others do the same. A lot of his and Ferb's activities come from a desire to help friends and family with their problems, or even just to make their day better. While this may have varying degrees of success, Phineas always means well. Finally, even his obliviousness has a good side. While Phineas is often ignorant of others' feelings, he rarely loses his cool. Aside from a few reasonable lash-outs at Candace, he can get along with just about anyone, from social outcasts to grouchy sisters to undercover interns. Heck, one of his best friends literally started off as his bully. If that doesn't prove this kid's conflict-solving skills, I don't know what does. Now, it'll be a bit longer before we get to the Candace we all know, but second dimension Candace should be able to tide you over until then. Just like her first dimension counterpart, this Candace is tenacious and stubborn to the bitter end. The difference is that rather than just trying to tattle on her brothers, 2D Candace is actively fighting against the tyrannical regime of second dimension Doofenshmirtz, making sure to protect her little brothers from it above all costs.
I'll do whatever it takes to protect the ones I love.
She can definitely be ruthless at times, but with how high the stakes are in her world, we can't blame her too much, really. If anything, that makes her all the more admirable. Look out, here he comes, Dr. Carl, you saw nothing. Jokes and whatever that was aside, Carl is Major Monogram's unpaid intern at Auka, but he's more than just an intern, he's also a friendly guy, for one thing. In one episode, when he went undercover to spy on Phineas and the gang, he quickly fit into their friend group and had a good time. In the season 5 episode, More Than an Intern, we also found out that Carl has no less than 3 part-time jobs to pay his rent outside of Auka, and still finds the time to assist Monogram at the agency whenever he's called on. In this episode alone, he straight up saved Agent P's life when he was about to fall off a building, and in doing so, he risked his own neck and livelihood. Carl is a good-natured, hard-working guy. We just hope he remembers to take care of himself. Maybe he needs to just dim the lights, close the curtains, and dance in a coconut bra, and I've said too much! From one Auka MVP to another, next is Major Monogram's son, Monty Monogram. With a combination of his father's dreams of becoming an acrobat to his own dreams of fighting evil, Monty has one of the most fierce fighting styles in Auka's history, and he uses it for good throughout his appearances. One of his most impressive appearances was in Phineas and Ferb Save Summer, in which he encourages Carl to stay strong under the pressure of being thrust into a leadership role, ultimately helping him, Perry, and Doofenshmirtz stop Rodney from plunging the Earth into another ice age. Monty seems like a nice guy all around, from his hero work to his time as a romantic interest of Vanessa's. It's a shame he has Ferb as his companion, because some guys just can't be beat. A love interest who had a bit more luck was Jeremy Johnson. Jeremy is the object of Candace's obsession. Affection? Okay, no, I meant obsession, actually. Thankfully, though, the feeling is mutual. Jeremy's the type of dude who just rolls with whatever's going on. From Candace's obsessive crush to whatever the neighbor kids are inventing that day, he's always nice to people. He's a caring older brother to Susie, a polite employee of Slushy Dog, and a guy who tries to keep the peace wherever he goes. Even in Jeremy's worst appearance when he was willing to cheat to win a dance competition, he only did so because of how much Candace wanted to win, and even then, he came clean in the end because of his conscience. When such a nice guy has like 9 characters ahead of him, you can tell this series is a pretty wholesome cast. Following him is another member of Candace's inner circle, Stacy Hirano. Being Candace's best friend has got to be exhausting, but Stacy handles it pretty well. She's always there to support Candace in whatever she wants to do, from helping bust the boys to providing emotional support when she's spiraling about something. Her good nature goes beyond her friendship with Candace, though. Like Jeremy, Stacy also tends to get along with the younger kids pretty well. When Candace tried to recruit her to bust them for their giant mini golf course, she lost focus and ended up having a good time playing with the gang. Heck, she's even an ally to Auka. After discovering Perry's secret, she keeps it under wraps, and in season 5, she even came in clutch to save his life from Love Muffin's hippo-themed death trap. The worst we could say about Stacy is that she sometimes enables Candace's busting fixation a little too much.
I am now her eyes, ears, and mouth. Basically, I'm her whole face.
But honestly, when your worst trait is being too loyal to a friend, we can't take a lot of points away from your record. Balajit Jinder is up next, and I'm sure he'll be relieved to know that he isn't losing a lot of points either. Balajit ranks a little lower than Phineas, Ferb, and Isabella, primarily because he does have a bit of an ego at times, most memorably seen in The Baljeetles, where he famously went full-on hard rock after finding out he wouldn't be graded on his assignment. When Baljeet loses his cool, he can lash out pretty hard, and granted, that's how most people are when it comes down to it.
If it means anything, I'd give you an A+ in rock.
No, that means almost nothing.
But Baljeet is capable of moving into full-on supervillain territory when he's given enough of an influence. Like in Cranius Maximus, where Phineas and Ferb's invention increased his intellect to a point where Baljeet was smart enough to threaten all of human life just because he saw himself as above them. Like the Fireside Girls, we won't take a ton of points away from him for that, since his actions were mainly due to the influence of the invention, but considering how large the scale of his plan was, we still have to acknowledge that Baljeet definitely has the potential for evil.
Boy, you tried to eliminate the atmosphere one time.
Next, we have the iconic 80s synth musician Max Modem, but for today, we'll call him Lawrence Flynn Fletcher. Unlike Linda, who inexplicably never sees Phineas and Ferb's inventions, Lawrence is fully aware of his boys' capacity for brilliant inventing. The catch is that unlike Candace or Linda, he doesn't really mind it. In fact, he seems to genuinely enjoy their inventions, from helping Candace learn to parallel park in a monster truck arena to enjoying the swanky new bookcase they make for him in season 5. The worst we could say about Lawrence is the same kind of stuff we could say about any other TV dad. Like, wow, he forgot his wife's anniversary one time? Join the club with like every other cartoon father in existence. It's still not good, but with the kids' help, he's certainly made up for it. He's willing to go all out for Linda. In the aforementioned Max Modem episode, he invented his own pop star identity with the kids' help just so he'd still be cool enough for her. Lawrence is a catch. Speaking of which, you guys want to hear some of his fishing stories? Now, they start back in the year of Charlene Doofenshmirtz isn't the most major character, but we felt the need to mention her regardless. When you hear divorce, you think about bitter grudges and hurt feelings. With Charlene and Heinz, that's not the case at all. They literally just wanted different things in life and don't seem to hold any ill will towards each other. In fact, they seem to still be close friends, as evidenced by Charlene frequently defending Heinz from Vanessa's accusations of him being evil.
Your father is not evil. We just didn't get along.
Ironically, despite Vanessa being right on the surface level, Charlene was technically even more right, since Doof ended up being a good guy by the end of the series and had a way bigger heart than he let on at first. For seeing the good in her ex-husband and being a generally good mother herself, we give Charlene a lot of points. Sneaking their way right into the next spot is Love Handle, a band that makes many appearances throughout the series. Most famously, these two are responsible for the love between Linda and Lawrence, and in Dude, We're Getting the Band Back Together, they help the pair rekindle their romance by getting back together and performing as an anniversary present. The worst we could say about Love Handle is that they can be a bit egotistical at times, particularly Bobby, but in the end, they're pretty down to earth and kind people, as far as celebrities go at least. Another multiple person entry, Clyde and Betty Jo Flynn are up next. These two are the grandparents to Phineas and Ferb, and like all good grandparents, their roles generally center around having fun with their grandkids and the rest of the family. They don't really have any overtly bad traits aside from those typical of older folk, from petty grudges to occasional obliviousness. I guess Reginald and Winifred Fletcher fall into the same category, but there's really even less moral debates to go on there. We're nearing the end of our purely good section, so let's talk about Peter the Panda. Peter might be best remembered as the homewrecker from It's About Time, who acted as Doofenshmirtz's side nemesis. Unlike Perry, Peter didn't have a lot of patience for Doof's antics. Instead of listening to his backstory, he would take the opportunity of his rival's monologue to disable his innator, deeply hurting Doof's feelings. While this shows that Peter isn't as sensitive as Perry, it still isn't fully evil since Peter was just doing his job. Later, he tries to make amends with Doof and Perry, despite how badly things ended last time. Most notably in Meeples in Seattle, Peter meets up with Doof at a coffee shop and tries to buy him a coffee, ultimately helping the gang save Doof and take down Mitch. Later on, we find out there might be a reason Peter goes straight to the thwarting part. His own nemesis, Professor Mystery, never gives him a backstory or even a rundown of his evil schemes. After Doof helped him overcome his communication problems, Mystery began communicating with Peter more, which will hopefully allow these frenemies to start a more wholesome love-hate relationship. Tack on all his heroic deeds with the Auka, and you have a character with a way better track record than we went into this video expecting. Rounding out our fully good characters, we have Linda Flynn Fletcher. On the surface, Linda is a perfectly kind woman. She's supportive of her husband and children and their interests, loving them unconditionally through thick and thin. thin. She's also generally kind to others, having a healthy amount of friendships and a genuine sense of respect towards her fans from her pop star days. So why is she so relatively low? Well, first things first, we're giving Linda the Darwin Sinner Medal, and it's not because she's stupid or anything, it's because she's ignorant. Like, okay, Candace can be petty sometimes, but you'd think that her calling her mother every single day about her brother's antics would make Linda more observant of her kids' behavior a little bit, right? Well, as it stands, Linda has basically no trust in her own daughter, and while Candace is terribly unlucky at times, resulting in there never being direct evidence for Linda to see, her lack of any further analysis shows how non-seriously she sees her daughter's anxiety, which is clearly a big issue for her. Thankfully, in the revival, while Linda's still painfully ignorant, she at least has Candace going to a therapist and is genuinely happy to see any progress she makes. It's clear that however seriously she takes or doesn't take her daughter, she does genuinely love her. In one of the time travel episodes, when Linda discovers Candace was telling the truth all along, she sincerely apologizes for not believing her, proving that, again, she isn't evil, just ignorant. Her strong sense of familial love is just enough to keep Linda in the good section. Now let's move into the characters with the more inconsistent moral compass. This is the gray area. Let's begin with one of the many characters we were way too hard on last time, Buford van Stom. While Buford was introduced as a standard bully, he quickly became one of Phineas and Ferb's best friends. Throughout season 1, he goes from a one-note antagonist to a more multifaceted character. First off, Buford only started bullying others because his only friend, a goldfish named Biff, was nearly eaten by a bigger kid, so Buford's bullying it's literally just a defense mechanism. Once he starts trusting Phineas, Ferb, and the other kids, his bullying tendencies slowly take a back seat. While he still consistently hassles Baljeet, it's made clear that it's just how they show affection to each other, seeing how they both unambiguously like each other. He's even got a code of honor that he lives by, becoming Baljeet's loyal servant after he saves his life.
I will empty my mind of all thought except for Baljeet. There, that was easy.
Until Buford repays the debt, that is. He's honest even when he is a bully, but he does become much nicer over the course of the series. By the point of the revival, Buford really isn't even a bully anymore. He's just the one friend who's tough and kind of weird. He's always happy to help his friends. From faking a life or death situation to help Baljeet hone his acting skills, to using his inexplicable wax molds of his friends to help Candace with her busting experiment. Again, 2 nickels.
Why you have a life-size mold of Candace?
I got life-size molds of all my friends.
I'm not so sure how I feel about that.
To, for some reason, being in charge of the schedules of Baljeet and Phineas and Ferb's mother, Buford is an absolute mystery.
Want to see what I got behind my ear? It's another ear.
Mind flip.
But he certainly isn't just a bully. He's a kid who needed friends to make him feel safe enough to soften up a little bit. Oh yeah, and we'd be remiss if we didn't give him the Gluttony Sinner Medal. This guy just really wants that bread bowl hot tub. But not nearly as much as Candace Flynn wants to bust her brothers. Like with Buford, we were way too hard on poor Candace last time around, but she is in the gray area, so I guess we should start with the bad traits she has.
Your true teen identity is actually the busting and crush-obsessed older sister type.
Candace is one of the main antagonists of the series, and that's for a good reason. No matter what Phineas and Ferb are doing, Candace is determined to bust them. On the surface, this makes her seem incredibly petty and mean-spirited, and at times, she certainly can be. But a closer look at her actions reveals that she isn't just a one-note antagonist. Think about it. Linda never believes Candace about what Phineas and Ferb are up to. If you were trying to convince your own mother that you weren't a mentally unstable liar, and rather a mentally unstable person telling the truth, wouldn't you maybe go a bit overboard sometimes as well? What's more, Candace has often given up deliberate chances to bust her brothers for the sake of doing what's right. In the episode where she becomes a lifeguard, she has evidence of the lake nose monster, but after seeing how sad Phineas and Ferb are, she realizes they were only trying to protect her, and she throws the evidence away entirely.
We're proud of you, sis.
In Meeples in Seattle, she sacrifices her phone, which was full of recordings of the guys' shenanigans, to stop Mitch from escaping. And in the season 5 premiere alone, she helps the kids rescue Linda from being evaporated into mist.
Wow, huge turn there.
Candace is also devoted to her friends and boyfriend. While she sometimes puts them on the back burner for the sake of her busting endeavors, she always makes up for it in the end. Oh yeah, Lust Sinner Medal, by the way, I don't think we even need to explain that one. The long and short of it is that Candace has a lot more good than bad. It's easy to see her on the surface as a bratty, petty teenager, but while she has tendencies that run in that direction, they don't take away from all the good that she's done throughout the series. And who doesn't accidentally tear apart the space-time continuum now and then? Am I right? Following Candace is another teenage girl with a penchant for busting. Vanessa Doofenshmirtz. Dr. Doofenshmirtz's daughter is a goth teenager with most of the traits that come with that. She's constantly embarrassed by her parents, sometimes behaves superficially, normal teenage girl stuff. What's not normal is dealing with the antics of her evil scientist dad, trying to tell her well-meaning yet ignorant mother what's really going on behind the scenes, etc. She's always looking out for him, and in the last episode before the revival, we found out why that is. She realized before Doof himself that his evil wasn't really something he wanted to do, but rather his way of coping with the abuse he'd suffered throughout his life. These words were what started Doof's slow, steady journey away from evil and into the world of do-gooding, which gives Vanessa a lot of points as a good daughter. That said, we have to take points away from her for that one time she snatched a doll from a little girl. Yes, we know that doll was a present from her dad, but as far as the kid was concerned, it was just a doll her mother bought her fair and square. Sentimental stuff aside, that's a pretty messed up mark on an otherwise clean record. Next up, we have the self-proclaimed biggest fan of Phineas and Ferb, Irving.
I'm Irving. I'm your biggest fan.
Okay, while self-proclaimed is objectively true, I think he's earned the title. Irving literally just shows up sometimes. He isn't particularly close with the other kids and seems to just tag along uninvited to places. His obsession with the boys and lack of boundaries is definitely a bit unsettling, but they're both understandable considering he's a kid. He's always down to help the gang with their adventures and seems to just want a bit of attention and inclusion. As weird and creepy as he can be, Irving isn't a bad kid. He just, I think he needs a hug, man. I can't believe our scriptwriter just left an empty spot on this script. What, did he think a viable entry would just fall out of the sky? Oh, it's on the next page. The farmer and his wife are probably the closest thing to fully neutral people this series has to offer. In every appearance they have, the farmer makes some kind of impulsive, lifestyle-altering purchase to try and start a new business, followed by his wife rightfully being ticked off about it, only for whatever they need to just fall out of the sky. Maybe this is just a ritual for them at this point, but it's no doubt put some kind of strain between them. That one scene where the farmer sadly says, "You've never believed in me." That felt too real. He said that from his soul. Please buy some couples counseling sessions next. Then we have I'm sorry, is that a giant floating baby head? He floats. He's a baby head. I guess neither of those are bad things, right? Can we move on? He's starting to creep me out. Let's look at a slightly less unsettling floaty thing, Balloony. Doofenshmirtz's childhood best friend is a balloon with a disturbingly realistic human face drawn on it. They used it to spend every day together until one day Balloony floated away. He ended up being taken in by Meep's arch nemesis Mitch as a servant, betraying his old friend in the process. But don't worry, he found redemption in the second Meep episode where he decided to swap sides at the last second, saving Doofenshmirtz's life from some of Mitch's robot soldiers and almost dying in the process. Side note, man, I love this show. I just read a whole character analysis written on a balloon who isn't even consistently sentient. Let's move on to another fully sentient character, Albert. Albert is Irving's older brother and basically the kind of guy who gets all of his social skills from Reddit. But whenever he appears, he's either teasing his brother for having different interests or desperately pledging to help random girls in the hopes they'll notice him.
I gave her my nerd word.
In the episode Nerds of a Feather, Albert starts a war against Irving at a convention, endangering children all over the venue just because they like a different movie genre. He's not a monster by any means, but he doesn't have a lot of outright good qualities, so we had to put him pretty low. Surprisingly, landing on the lower end of the gray area is the head of the Auca, Major Francis Monogram. Monogram deserves a lot of credit right off the bat for his general goodwill towards humanity. It's thanks to the Auca's hardworking agents that the inexplicably high number of evil scientists in this universe haven't taken over absolutely everything, and we have to tip our hats to him for that. Unfortunately, where we can't give him a lot of points is in the treatment of his workers. For one thing, he consistently teases Carl, ranging from passive jabs to direct insults. Even though Carl is an unpaid intern, Monogram rarely appreciates him properly.
Pedal faster. Gotta check my email.
In the episode More Than an Intern, he regularly gives him orders outside of his working hours, despite Carl working 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. Monogram doesn't even believe Carl until Carl delivers his pizza to him. And while he does make up with him after realizing how hard-working Carl truly is, it reveals that, in general, Monogram tends to take a lot more than he gives from the people around him. The Greed Sinner Medal is his for the sheer fact that he took until that very episode we mentioned earlier to even validate Agent P's parking. And on top of that, he constantly refuses to give Agent P time off, often calling him in while he's sleeping or on vacation. I know evil never rests, but your agents need to, dude. His heart may be more mechanical than most, but Norm isn't anywhere near fully cold-hearted. On the contrary, he's a robot. It's not that Norm doesn't do much, it's that he doesn't do much of his own volition. Pretty much all of Norm's actions are done with the intent of carrying out Doofenshmirtz's orders, which just happen to often involve trying to take over the tri-state area. He is capable of throwing shade when he's in the mood though, so there's that, but it's worth noting that Norm, for all of his faults, is fiercely loyal to his master. Even after Doofenshmirtz routinely insults and demeans him, he's still willing to help him out in a pinch when the need arises. Now that Doof has gone good, we have a feeling that Norm is going to follow suit. Speaking of which, alright, now it's time for the moment everyone's been waiting for. It's time to talk about the not evil scientist, but the morally gray scientist himself, Heinz Doofenshmirtz. Doofenshmirtz needs no introduction. He absolutely steals every scene he's in, from his comically tragic backstories to his ruthlessly petty innators. Doof is constantly scheming to cause a ruckus serious with his inventions, varying from revenge schemes as petty as insulting a whale for stealing his girlfriend,
I've just insulted the macaroni and cheese recipe of a whale!
to plans as inadvertently dangerous as vaporizing anything that displeases him on any level, or, of course, trying to take over the tri-state area!
Yes.
Simply put, the doof wants what it wants. It just happens that his methods put people in constant danger. Thankfully, Doofenshmirtz has a lot more good than bad in his heart. His daughter Vanessa puts it best. Doofenshmirtz is a nice guy pretending to be bad. His inventions are almost never intended to cause actual harm to others. They're just done to either settle the score with someone who's wronged him or to make his life more convenient. He has lines he won't cross. In Phineas and Ferb Save Summer, Doof turns his back on the other members of Love Muffin when they threaten to send the world into an ice age, ultimately helping to encourage Major Monogram and take down the truly evil scientists once and for all. Doof isn't just not evil, he's genuinely a caring guy. He has a healthy friendship with Perry the Platypus, often venting about his traumas and having a legitimately fun time with their thwart sessions. That's not to mention him doing his best as a father to Vanessa, often going overboard to ensure that she has a better childhood than he did. I mean, it doesn't really take much to have a better childhood than Doof, but still, it's clear that Doof, deep down, is motivated by the people he loves the most. Even in the revival, when Doofenshmirtz returns to his evil-ish ways, he still stands out as a decent guy. When he helps fellow scientist Dr. Diminutive capture Perry, he's horrified when Perry is put in a death trap, ultimately helping Stacy rescue Perry from it, and even apologizing to his nemesis. In the new Meep special, he doesn't just save Balloony and Perry from some of Mitch's soldiers, he directly calls Perry his friend.
Still here. Okay, clownbots, let's try fighting to save my friends maniacally.
You can run from it all you want, Doof, but that kind heart of yours is going to catch up eventually. Out of sheer respect, though, we'll give Doofenshmirtz the Wrath Center Medal, because frankly, anyone with such specific grudges against others truly deserves the honor. And we aren't done with the Doofenshmirtz family. Next up is Bubba Doofenshmirtz, Heinz's cousin. He's a new running joke character introduced in season 5. At least, I hope he comes back. This guy was hilarious. Just hearing Doofenshmirtz speak in a southern accent is hilarious itself.
Behold, my Beavernator!
While Bubba isn't a model citizen by any means, as he takes a little too much pleasure in cooking up that there shitty duck, he was polite enough to offer some to his guests, Major Monogram and Carl. Bubba is gunning to take over the Tri-Swamp area, which makes him about as not really threatening as Heinz. But unlike Heinz, we don't really know if there's more to Bubba yet, so until his hopeful return, we'll keep him on the lower end of our middle category. And to round out the gray area, we have Doof's brother, Roger Doofenshmirtz. I think this has been a really fun gray area. We started out with two characters we were too hard on last time around, and we end with a character we were way too easy on. Let's get one thing out of the way. We aren't going to blame Roger for the fact that his parents favored him. We are, however, going to blame him for the way he disregards his own brother as a full-grown adult. As mayor of Danville, Roger could help his brother a lot more than he actually does, whether that would be arresting him for his crimes or even just getting help for him to keep him from committing them in the first place. But instead, the only times we even really see Roger and Heinz interact at all are when the former needs someone to take the fall for some bad PR. In The Beak, when Caca Poo Poo attacked Danville, Roger proved he was a coward by abandoning office and leaving Doof to take the heat. The only exception to the rule of Roger being a selfish coward was the time he used city funding to fix a painting of Heinz's that he accidentally stained, and even then, he used city funding for it, which I'm pretty sure is embezzlement.
Well, that was 20 years well spent. Melanie, what's my next appointment?
But while Roger is a jerk, he isn't quite unambiguously evil, and there's no denying that his bad tendencies are mostly due to his parents' spoiling and favoritism of him. With that, we move into the final category, reserved for only the most heinous villains in Phineas and Ferb, which there aren't a ton of, but trust me, there are some. These are the bad to evil. Dink Winkerson, here to take the first spot in our final category. While he may seem like a regular news reporter on the surface in his return in season 5, which, I'll be real, I completely forgot he existed until then, he's revealed to be the infamous mom mugger, which basically is, wait, I'm not explaining it. It's in the name. He mugs moms. That's bad. You know what else is bad? Naming your child Caca Poo Poo. As if having such an unfortunate name weren't bad enough, Caca Poo Poo apparently has some pretty terrible luck, having never had a single good day in his life, which, considering the fact that he's married, really makes you wonder why he's married.
Are you in there complaining again about never having a good day in your life?
Like, even if his wedding day wasn't happy, what gives? It's hard to blame a miserable person for lashing out at the world, that is, until they start making giant robots to terrorize innocent people. And while we don't mean to victim blame here, I can't help but feel like maybe he's just making his life worse by staying with a woman who nags and throws chairs at him 24/7? I don't know, just a thought.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have, okay, can you move the camera a little lower? Yeah, okay, there we go. Dr. Diminutive, one of Doofenshmirtz's peers from Love Muffin. We mention him out of all of his other peers because he's one of the the ones we've seen the most of, and it's not all just short jokes, just mostly short jokes. Personally, I'd be going after his Ben Shapiro-esque voice, but that's just me. In any case, Diminutive is like all the other members of Love Muffin, in terms of him being an actually evil scientist to point out how non-evil Doofenshmirtz really is. We saw this particularly in the episode Agent T for Teen, where he helped Doofenshmirtz capture Perry, only to, unbeknownst to Doof himself, lure Perry into a death trap to be mauled by hippos. Yeah, not sharks, hippos.
Actually, hippos are much more dangerous.
He was willing to sacrifice presentation points just because hippos were statistically more dangerous. That is dedication to the craft. Landing just outside of our bottom 5 is Jeremy's sister, little Susie Johnson. Really, even that might be underselling this little demon child. She may put on an innocent face when Jeremy's around, but Susie is not a good kid. She's determined to keep Jeremy for herself by whatever means necessary, constantly sabotaging Candace with whatever screwed up schemes she can think of. This ranges from ruining her outfits, to having dogs bite her, to even getting squirrels to crawl down her pants at the park. We were thinking about cutting her some slack for her age and the fact that, in her own words, Susie considers herself off the clock when Jeremy isn't around, meaning she won't torture Candace if he won't be there to see it. But then we remembered her casually revealing that her schemes to keep his attention on her are just to manipulate him into doing whatever she wants. Either way, the Envy Center medal definitely belongs to Susie. She may be little, but she's manipulative and ruthless enough to land pretty low on our list. I mean, did you see how horrified Buford was at the mere thought of her? Wash away the horror, wash away the horror. The arch nemesis of Meep, Mitch, is up next. This guy was our gold medalist last time around, but needless to say, we forgot about a couple of baddies. That's not to say that our views on Mitch have changed, though. This guy makes a living off of poaching aliens from other galaxies, which is already messed up on its own, but then you have the fact that he also has ambitions to take over the universe using the power of cuteness, and he's come terrifyingly close at times. He also isn't above threatening to kill his henchmen for disagreeing with him, or even just asking too many questions. We don't really have any outright good things to say about Mitch. He just isn't as horrible as the last few characters. Now, this next guy technically shouldn't count since he only appeared as part of a dream, but we had to mention the drill sergeant from Phineas and Ferb Get Busted. Not only was this one of the more memorable specials in the series' history, it also introduced one of its most terrifying villains, a drill sergeant whose entire goal is to squeeze every last drop of creativity out of children to ensure they don't cause trouble for their parents. In simple terms, the guy literally tortures kids, holding their eyes open to force them to watch propaganda, putting them in solitary confinement for non-conforming behavior, and just generally being an abusive piece of garbage, taking pride in destroying the joy and innocence of childhood.
You've done a great job of turning them into, that.
Yes. Yes, we have.
Ranges somewhere around the most evil thing you could do, and honestly, if this dude were actually real in universe, we'd have a hard time placing him anywhere but at the #1 most evil spot. Regardless, the last 3 villains who actually do exist outside of dream sequences deserve a bit more credit, if you ask us. For our bronze medal of evil, we have Alois von Rodenstein. Just call him Rodney though, that's easier. And after what he got arrested for, you won't hear him complaining about it anytime soon. While there initially isn't much to separate Rodney from the other members of Love Muffin, aside from his funny voice, make no mistake, this guy is more threatening than Doof could ever dream of being, and don't worry, that's not a compliment. In Phineas and Ferb Save Summer, when Doof tries to move the Earth farther from the sun so his sunscreen will work, Love Muffin decides to use the resulting weather change to their advantage. In particular, Rodney decides to give the people an ultimatum. Either they meet their demands, or he'll send the world into another ice age. Now, the world leaders meet all of the villains' demands within, like, a day, except for Pretzels, because of their failure to deliver Pretzels, though. Rodney decided it was time to send the Earth far enough away to doom humanity to another ice age.
No pretzels! No deal!
Now, I know what you're thinking. What motive could Rodney possibly have for doing this, knowing full well that it would kill him and his allies too? Well, that got nothing. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Or freeze, in this case. But remember when I said Rodney was more heinous than Doof could ever dream of being? You should, because it was like a minute ago. But either way, we were mistaken, because Second Dimension Heinz Doofenshmirtz takes the silver medal of evil. But first, this video is brought to you by WickedBinge channel memberships. You can gain access to our videos early before anyone else, plus gain access to members-only emojis and loyalty badges by supporting the channel through a membership. 2D Doof lost his beloved toy train as a child, which sent him spiraling into a descent of sheer, unadulterated evil.
That's it?
This Doof didn't just manage to take over the tri-state area, he kept an iron-fisted, fear-based rule over them for years, where people lived in constant terror over his power. He isn't above hurting children to reach his goals either, but at least he isn't all bad, since even this Doof has a close friendship with Perry. It just took him defeating Perry and transforming into a cyborg literally built to serve him.
He was once my nemesis, but now he is general of my army!
Which honestly is actually worse than outright killing him would have been, so never mind. Now, I know what you're thinking, or you might not, because it's a very very specific thought. But in the episode Phineas and Ferb's Quantum Boogaloo, we see an alternate future where Doof actually takes over the tri-state area, making it so everything has to do with him by law. But while this was evil for sure, even then most of Doof's decrees were just petty and silly, like naming everyone Joe so he wouldn't have to remember so many names. 2D Doofenshmirtz, on the other hand, straight up has people killed, lobotomized, or otherwise brutalized for the slightest infractions. This guy is Doofenshmirtz with almost none of the sympathy and 10 times the evil, but at least he was willing to relent once he got his choo-choo back. But whatever you think about the Doofenshmirtzes, I think we can all agree on one thing. Doofenshmirtz's parents can go get shot by the Step-on-a-Legoinator. Seriously, there's absolutely no ambiguity here. Even with all the various world-threatening villains we see throughout the series, there was never a single moment where we seriously doubted their placement. Doof's parents are so evil that they give their own son a different backstory for like every week. From forcing him to stand outside in all kinds of weather dressed as a lawn gnome, to showing clear favoritism towards his brother, to demeaning and humiliating Doof. Heck, they didn't even show up to his birth. These two are such horrid parents that they broke the laws of nature itself just to neglect their son. Just about everything Doof's parents did caused him absolute misery. What's worse is that all of Doof's attempts to win their hearts fell flat. Take the time he spent his only money on a teddy bear from the claw machine district. When he proudly presented it to his mother, she, in front of him, mind you, gave it as a gift to Roger. Look, I guess you could argue that they loved Roger since he was a prodigy and all, but that doesn't make any difference to us. The fact is that they emotionally abused, neglected, and downright endangered their son constantly throughout his childhood, to the point where he had to be raised by ocelots at one point. That's something we can't even begin to defend. And no, Mrs. Doofenshmirtz, he's bad at kickball is not an excuse to neglect your son. Everyone else we've discussed in this category is either some level of crazy or had some redeeming qualities, but these two are rotten to the core, and we have no qualms giving them the gold medal of evil. You two are the schnitzels, Doof's parents. Shame on you.